The stage lights were blinding, so bright they turned the edges of the world into nothing but haze. The young Filipino boy stood there, barely tall enough for the microphone, his small body swallowed by an Elvis-style jacket that looked like it belonged to someone twice his size. He tugged at the collar nervously, his fingers trembling, his breathing shallow. The AGT stage was enormous, too enormous. It felt like his heartbeat echoed through the entire arena, like everyone could hear just how scared he was. The audience watched him with mild curiosity, whispering to one another, some smiling kindly, some unsure, but the judges, their faces were unreadable. Or rather, some were. Sophia leaned forward with a warm smile, Heidi tilted her head, curious, but Simon sat back with his arms crossed, chin raised just enough to show he wasn't expecting much at all. His expression was a mixture of boredom and skepticism, the look every contestant feared. The boy swallowed hard, forcing his voice to come out. "My name is Carlo, I'm from the Philippines," he said, his voice trembling. Even his accent wavered, like it wasn't sure if it wanted to belong on this stage. His feet shifted nervously, and he clung to the mic stand like it was the only stable thing left on earth. For a moment, he thought about his mother backstage, her hands pressed together, her lips whispering a prayer in Tagalog. She had told him, "Kaya mo an anak. You were born for this." But standing here, under billions of watts of stage lights, it didn't feel like he was born for anything except fear. The music started, soft, familiar, one of the Elvis classics he had sung in the tiny karaoke bar back home. A place where people clapped because they loved him, not because they were judging him. Here, everything felt different. The stakes came with shadows, pressure, and millions of eyes watching. He inhaled sharply. He stepped closer to the mic, and he began to sing, but he barely completed the first line before he saw Simon's hand. It lifted into the air with a casual yet authoritative motion, the universal sign to stop. The music cut abruptly. The audience gasped in immediate shock. A murmur spread across the room like a wave. The boy froze mid-word, his lips still parted, breath caught in his throat. A hot heaviness filled his chest, like disappointment had materialized into something physical and heavy enough to crush him. He stared at Simon, eyes wide, confused, terrified. Being stopped this early, this fast, was usually a death sentence on the AG stage. People who got stopped in the first 10 seconds rarely recovered. And he knew that. He had watched every season, memorized every moment. The stop almost always meant, "You're not good enough." His mother backstage felt her knees weaken. She grabbed the curtain to steady herself, whispering under her breath, "Please, please don't crush him, please don't." Simon leaned forward, elbows resting on the table, eyes squinting as he studied Carlo. Not with annoyance, not with anger, but with something else, something harder to read. The silence stretched so long that Carlo thought he might be sick. Every heartbeat felt too loud, too slow. Sweat trickled down the back of his neck. Then Simon spoke, calmly, quietly, but with a weight that made the entire arena listen. "Carlo," he said, "sing it again, but this time." He paused, tilting his head slightly, eyes narrowing with a strange kind of curiosity. "Sing it like you mean every word." The boy blinked. Wait. He wasn't stopping him because he was bad. He wasn't ending the audition. He was giving him another chance. A few people in the audience nodded encouragingly. A woman in the front row whispered, "Come on, sweetheart," under her breath. Somewhere in the back, someone clapped softly. Heidi smiled reassuringly. Sophia placed a hand to her chest, touched by the moment. The music director looked confused but prepared to restart the track. Carlo's heart pounded so hard he felt it in his ears. This was it, a second chance, a rare, impossible gift. He inhaled deeply, not just to catch his breath, but to reset something inside him. He closed his eyes. He tried to remember the world before the lights, before the pressure, before the fear. He remembered his father playing Elvis songs on an old speaker. He remembered dancing barefoot on the warm concrete floor of their small home. He remembered the sound of the ocean outside their window, the laughter of neighbors, the karaoke nights where his mother beamed with pride. He remembered why he loved this, why this wasn't just a dream, it was the only dream. He let those memories fill him, calm him, steady him. And when he opened his eyes, something in him shifted. He didn't cling to the mic stand this time. He let one hand drop to his side. His shoulders relaxed. His breathing steadied. The light still blinded him, but it didn't scare him anymore. The judges were still there, but they didn't tower over him the same way. And Simon's skeptical smirk, it wasn't mocking anymore. It was expectant. The boy nodded slowly. He was ready. The music started again, filling the arena with that warm, nostalgic melody. This time, Carlo didn't wait to find courage. He brought it with him. He opened his mouth, and the beginning of the sound that would change everything started to rise. The second the track restarted, something shifted, not just on stage, but in the air itself. It was like time paused for a heartbeat, giving the boy one last chance to breathe before everything changed. He stood at the center of the AGT stage, small shoulders rising and falling as he inhaled deeply. His fingers still trembling, wrapped around the microphone like it was the only anchor keeping him from drifting into the ocean of thousands of staring eyes. He didn't look at the judges this time, didn't glance at the crowd, didn't search for reassurance from his mother backstage. He simply closed his eyes, lowering his head for a moment as if talking silently to someone, maybe to his younger self, maybe to his late grandfather who first played him Elvis music, maybe to the dream he had been chasing for years in tiny karaoke bars back in the Philippines. Then the first note left his lips. It wasn't loud. It wasn't even confident at first. But it was pure, so pure that it cut clean through the tension that had settled over the room. And that purity grew, rising like a flame catching wind. His voice deepened, warmed, and began to glow with a power that no one had expected from a boy so small and nervous just seconds earlier. It was Elvis, but not an imitation. It was a spirit, a presence, a feeling. The kind of tone that carried stories inside it, stories of heartbreak and hope, of dusty stages and blue-suede shoes, of old radios and memories that never faded. The audience leaned forward, stunned, as if the entire arena had turned into an echo chamber picking up every quiver, every breath, every moment of raw emotion pouring out of him. A woman in the front row grabbed her husband's arm, whispering, "Oh my God." A teenager pulled out his phone, unable to look away. A man in the back wiped his eyes, confused by why he suddenly felt emotional. And on the judge's table, something even rarer happened. Heidi sat up straighter, eyebrows raised in disbelief. Howie leaned forward with both hands pressed against the table, studying the boy as though trying to unravel a miracle happening right in front of him. Sophia covered her heart with one hand, whispering, "He's just a child, how is he doing this?" But the real transformation appeared in Simon. Gone was the smirk, gone was the skepticism, gone was the usual guarded expression he wore like armor. His eyes softened, his jaw dropped just slightly, even the trademark eyebrow, usually raised only when something truly special appeared, began to lift in total shock. It was as if the first 10 seconds had shown Simon a spark, but now he was seeing the full fire, and the fire was breathtaking. The boy began to move, but not in a forced or practiced way. Instead, it was instinct, small, gentle movements that brought Elvis's iconic sway to life. His tiny foot tapped in rhythm, matching the beat effortlessly. His shoulders relaxed, chest opening as his confidence grew with each line. For a moment he didn't look like a contestant. He looked like a performer. A born performer. Every note he hit seemed to land deeper into the audience's hearts. He blended the softness of childhood innocence with the soul of old-school rock and roll, creating a sound that didn't just impress people, it touched them. Halfway through the song, he opened his eyes, and something inside him lit up. He saw the crowd. Rows and rows of people leaning forward, watching with pure astonishment. Some smiling, some teary-eyed, some shaking their heads in disbelief. They weren't judging him. They weren't doubting him. They were rooting for him, absorbing every second like they were witnessing something sacred. And his expression changed. Gone was the tight, nervous fear from before. Gone was the uncertainty. Gone was the trembling. In its place came a slow, rising smile, so small at first it was almost invisible, but growing into a glow that made the entire stage feel warmer. It was the smile of someone finally realizing their own worth. He lifted the mic slightly, powering into the next line with a newfound fire. His voice soared, reaching notes that weren't desperate or forced, but full, controlled, and heartbreakingly emotional. The judges exchanged glances, each silently acknowledging the same thing: they were witnessing a moment. A real moment. Camera zoomed in on Simon again. For the first time in a long time on AGT, he wasn't analyzing. He wasn't critiquing. He wasn't preparing a witty comment. He was simply present, emotionally captured by the performance, trapped in the gravity of the boy's voice like everyone else. And it was only getting stronger. The boy stepped forward, just one step, but it carried the confidence of someone who finally believed they deserved to be seen. The stage lights glowed behind him, creating a soft halo that made him look almost unreal, like a memory forming in real time. His voice cracked for a moment, not out of weakness, but emotion. And instead of hiding it, he embraced it. He let the vulnerability live in the note, letting it tremble just enough to pierce deeper into the hearts of everyone watching. Somewhere backstage, his mother cried softly, hands pressed over her mouth. She had seen her son sing countless times in their small living room, felt his passion, watched him practice until he fell asleep holding a microphone. But seeing him on that stage, seeing his fear transform into fire, was something else entirely. The boy reached the final chorus and the entire crowd rose to their feet. It was spontaneous, an instinctive reaction they couldn't control. Applause thundered through the arena, but he kept singing, voice rising above everything, cutting through the noise like a beam of light. He was no longer just performing, he was owning the moment. People waved their arms, some clapped rhythmically, a few even shouted, "Go boy," or "Sing it." The energy exploded, filling the space with a rush of excitement, pride, and disbelief. And then came the final note. He stretched it, strong, steady, and heartbreakingly powerful. The entire room froze, the cameras zoomed in. Even the producers backstage stepped closer to the monitors, unable to look away. The boy held that note with every ounce of courage inside him, and when he let it go, the world inside that arena erupted. A roar of applause, shouts, cheers, standing ovations from nearly every corner. But he didn't see any of it. Not at first. He stared ahead, chest rising and falling rapidly, eyes still wide and shining, not with fear anymore, but with disbelief. Disbelief that he had done it. That he had found his voice. That he had created something unforgettable. Slowly he looked toward the judges' table, and there it was, Simon Cowell standing, clapping, speechless. In that moment, the boy finally understood he wasn't just good, he was unforgettable. The last note of the song hung in the air like a delicate thread of gold, shimmering above the stage lights before slowly dissolving into silence. For a moment, the entire auditorium seemed to freeze. The audience wasn't breathing, the judges weren't moving. Even the boy, small, trembling, clutching the microphone with both hands, was frozen in place, chest rising and falling as he waited for someone, anyone to react. Then it happened. The silence cracked open with a roar so powerful it hit the stage like a wave. The audience erupted, thousands of voices shouting at once, cheering, screaming his name even though they'd only heard it minutes ago. People surged to their feet, clapping so hard their palms stung. Someone in the back whistled loudly. Another person wiped their tears, unable to believe what they had just witnessed. The boy blinked against the bright lights, stunned by the force of the applause that swallowed him from every direction. But he didn't smile. Not yet. Not until he saw the one reaction that mattered most. Simon Cowell was still sitting, still frozen, still staring at him with an expression not even the cameras could immediately understand. The man known for brutal honesty, razor-sharp comments, and immediate judgments had nothing to say. His eyes were wide, not the dramatic, exaggerated kind he sometimes used for television moments, but genuine, raw disbelief. His lips were slightly parted, like he had been about to speak but forgot the words before they reached his tongue. The boy felt his heart stop. Had he done something wrong? Had he upset Simon? Confusion flickered across his face. For all the cheers from the audience, for all the applause shaking the theater, his gaze was locked entirely on the man who held the power to change everything. Simon slowly leaned forward, elbows on the desk, fingers pressed together, like he was looking not at a contestant, but at something rare, something precious. His eyes traced the boy's small frame, the oversized Elvis jacket hanging off his shoulders, the sweat glistening on his forehead, the tremble still in his fingers. But mostly he looked at his eyes. The same eyes that had closed tightly when he sang, pouring out everything he had held inside. The other judges exchanged glances. Sofa mouthed, "Whoa." Heidi shook her head with a stunned smile. Howie pressed a hand to his chest like he needed to steady himself. But even they waited. Because everyone knew the real moment would come from the man at the center of the panel. Backstage, the boy's mother covered her mouth. Tears streamed freely down her face, mixing with makeup she didn't care was smudging. She whispered prayers in Filipino, unable to believe her son. The boy who used to sing in their tiny living room with a hairbrush mic, was standing on the biggest stage in the world, leaving even Simon Cowell speechless. The boy swallowed hard. His voice shook when he finally whispered, "Is everything okay?" A soft laugh rippled through the audience, but Simon didn't smile, not yet. Instead he slowly stood up from his chair. The audience gasped again. Simon standing wasn't a small moment. It wasn't casual. It wasn't something he did for just any performer. When he rose to his feet, it meant something seismic had shifted in the room. And just like that, the cheering grew even louder, people shouting, "Stedang ovid o," before the cameras could even pull back to show the shot. Simon's eyes softened. He lifted the microphone, exhaled slowly, and finally spoke. "I stopped you after 10 seconds. He began, his voice quieter than expected. The room settled instantly. People sat on the very edge of their seats. The boy clutched the mic, his heartbeat thundering in his ears. "I stopped you because I thought I knew what you were going to do." He paused, letting the weight of his words fall. "But I had no idea you were going to do that." A tremor went through the boy's chest. He blinked rapidly, trying to hold back tears. Simon shook his head slightly, still looking stunned as if the performance was replaying in his mind. "That voice," he continued, pointing gently at the boy, "did not come from someone your age. It did not come from someone your size. It came from a place I can't explain. It was emotional. It was powerful. And it was unbelievable. The boy's lips quivered. He heard the audience awe softly behind him. His mother, backstage, sobbed even harder, pressing a hand against the screen showing her son on stage. Simon took another breath, his voice growing more certain. You didn't just sing that song, you lived it, you felt it, and you made all of us feel it too. The boy finally allowed himself the smallest smile. Just a tiny one. The kind that barely touches the lips but explodes warmth across the heart. Then Simon said something he almost never said on camera, something that would echo across social media, across news headlines across the world. You, young man, are a star. The boy's knees weakened. He took a shaky step back, overwhelmed by emotion. The audience screamed louder than ever, chanting his name now, chanting, Wes, over and over like a celebration anthem. The other judges couldn't hold back anymore. Sophia stood up clapping above her head. Heidi twirled in excitement before pointing at the boy with both hands shouting, that was incredible. Howie yelled something joyful that was lost in the roar of the crowd. Then Simon looked at his fellow judges, nodded once, and turned back to the boy. This is the easiest decision we'll make all day. All 4 judges raised their hands, a unanimous yes. The boy stared at them, eyes shining, vision blurring. He didn't just get approval. He didn't just pass an audition. He earned something people spend their whole lives chasing. Respect. He had made Simon Cowell speechless, something even legends struggled to do. Backstage his mother fell to her knees crying from joy. Crew members hugged her, people in the audience wiped their tears, even some of the security guards smiled. On stage the boy pressed his hands together and whispered, thank you, his voice breaking, and as he walked off, shaking with disbelief, he knew, deep in the bones of his tiny Elvis jacket, that this moment would follow him forever. He didn't just sing, he made history.